Those three armlets come from the Trobriand Islands, from the southeast of the island of New Guinea, currently under the state of Papua New Guinea. The reason why I choose those objects is because these artifacts can be considered a little bit like exemplar of the relationship between anthropology and artifact. We don't know exactly who collected them, so their history is quite unknown. What we know is the fact that they have been collected in 1886. Those artifacts, in fact, were part of a network of exchanges in the Trobriand Islands that Malinowski had made famous under the term of Kula. And the way in which these work is, along with those artifacts, there were others also that were paired with them, which was a necklace, a long necklace, which was called the sulava. And the way in which it worked basically was a circle of exchanges with people from an island going westward to the next island and exchanging an armlet against a necklace. So those artifacts would circulate within the archipelago, and so for every time you would exchange an armlet, you were expected to receive a necklace in return at some stage. What is interesting in terms of those artifacts is they were valuables. We're talking about the distinction between currency and valuables before, that were held in possession of the individual who would have acquired them, but he wouldn't be able to keep them for quite a long time, I mean forever. He would have, after a certain time, exchange it again and put it back into circulation. So there were possessions that would give away at a certain stage, and the longer you would keep them, there would be you would, interestingly enough, depending on your own prestige, a part of your prestige would be invested within the artifact, but also the artifact, if it had belonged to other people, would invest you with a form of prestige. A little bit, for example, if you were allowed to keep for a while the jewel of the British crown in your house for, let's say, a temporary period, right? You would be imbued by the inherent power of the British majesty. That gives you an idea about the type of relationship that people established with artifacts of different culture. It's not really typical of the entire collection. As I said before, the collection is very heterogeneous, both in its geographical time span and quality. It's just because for me those artifacts are probably at the origin, or one of the main origin, of the anthropological interest for material culture. Because the book by Malinowski gained a very wide fame because it was the first time that somebody would study what was called then primitive economy, because he was studying this type of exchanges. Because when those exchanges would occur, at the same time, in parallel, people from an island, if I would come to your island to exchange that armlet against your necklace, in parallel there would be other type of exchanges that would go where about food or even wedding, marriage, and etc. So that was the first anthropological study of primitive economy, and that was like very, very famous. The other one, of course, that would go was the potlatch, who was studied by Franz Boas, and the potlatch in another seminal work in Anthropology of Economy. The potlatch is from the northwest coast of America, whereby it's a type of ceremony in which people destroy valuable, engage in competitive destruction of their valuable, to say, well, you see my flat screen of 2 meters here, I'm so rich, so powerful that I can literally destroy it. And you would reply by saying, well, my latest computer that I bought that amount of money, I destroy it. So you see, it's a different type of relationship with artifacts. So this study in primitive economy actually had a very, very, very big impact, because it was one of the first time that through exchanges, anthropologists started to think of the intimate relationship between artifacts, their materiality, their colors, their brilliance, their portability, the fact that they were mobile, and people. That's a very seminal moment within the history of anthropology, because not only we started to think about what was called economy or economics in a different way, but also a whole range of of researchers, including Malinowski, as I said, or Marcel Mauss in France, started to think about how primitive society exchanged things and what did it mean in terms of their conception of wealth, of relations, and etc. And they realized that in fact people were exchanging social relationship at the same time they were engaging in exchanges of things. So in a sense, those three shells and the materiality, because here obviously the fact that they are made of marine or sea material is also very interesting in terms of the cosmology, the conception of people and how they were made, the type of skill that would require to make not only the string, but I'm thinking here about creating the small disc or cutting those, was a very big important part of how people think about materiality, about their environment. Basically, the capacity to create those type of artifacts, to make them, the technique, was also construed as something which wasn't only, as we would say in Europe, just part of a technical skill separated from a spiritual or religious part, but everything was sort of mixed together. That is, that the very capacity to create artifacts, to find them, to work with the shell, with the string, with the coral, right, was construed as a sort of, I don't want to say supernatural because it implies a separation between the natural and the spiritual, but as a sort of power, almost also political power. I really have a particular affective relationship with them because of exactly that. These artifacts are among the source, the core, the noyau of anthropology in many ways, not only anthropology of material culture, but social anthropology, anthropology of personhood, history, magic, techniques, environment, and all the sorts.